Chapter 2 Operational Setup. Everything has been figured out, except how to live. Jean-Paul Sartre. There are several system-wide configuration parameters for every other software component to function correctly, for example, the system time and time zone, the language files used in Web GUI, the license file, extra software installation or update, the exporting of configuration files, software version, and the system status. We even allow the logo shown on the Web GUI to be replaced. There are other features like how to change the IP addresses, how to shut down the system via web interface, and how to add user accounts. We will introduce them in the following sections. From now on, you can configure the system from web interface via http://server_IP_address 8082/app/login, admin with password admin123. Other than the features mentioned above, we are going to cover the following topics in this chapter: the role of each Ethernet interface, static routing, dynamic routing protocols OSPF and RIP, multicast routing protocol PIM, how to add user accounts or binding with LDAP server, and DNS server setting for the other servers. System time and language setting. How to change the system time, time zone, and the language of the web interface. It can be done via system setup locale. There are three major items on this screen: time zone, language setting, and local time. In the selection items of time zone, it provides many different ways to specify the time zone area where the server is used, from the selection of area/country, the hours apart from GMT, or the name of that time zone. It is important to know, once the system time is modified improperly, some of the functionalities regarding to the timestamp may behave abnormally. The display items under language setting are the current localized text being used in Web GUI. The change will be reflected by the time you access the next web configuration screen immediately. Only English and Chinese are provided for the localization of the Web GUI at this moment. For the terminology related to the system, we will follow the English version. Application package installation/update. Some of the software packages or patches provided by the vendor can be installed to the system from this place: system setup install/update. However, you should be aware of the software packages being installed to the system in order to have tight control on the system behavior. System license. For activation. To enter the license to use the system, navigate via system setup activation. This screen is to allow you to place the license file into the system. Once you acquire the license file, the associated functionalities will be turned on. The activation code is 40-digit code that is divided into 4 groups, i.e., each group is with 10-digit number. When you want to purchase software license, you need to have this activation code ready. The activation code is changing with time. Thus, every time when you view this page, you will see different codes shown on the screen. It contains some information that we would like to keep a record on the system. You can just click the web link on the page. The URL will bring you to Azblink website. It is required to enter your registered account and password, and select the product combination to be activated in this host. The license file will be generated, and you can download it, and then upload it to this host to complete the activation process. Once the permanent license is installed, you will find out a SN number shown on the right corner of the top. Configuration data backup and restoration. To back up the configuration files, it can be done via system setup maintenance. This is to allow the administrator backing up the system settings when the machine is configured completely. The setting can be restored from the backup file. Those system setting files will be glued as one backup file and stored with date appearing as file name. The setting files include network configuration, border control rules, user account, and password. However, the account's admin and root will not be restored to previous setting. In other words, you have to remember your current passwords for admin and root. The system restoration will not override your current root password and admin password. How to back up the configuration files to another host. It also can be done via system setup maintenance. The system supports to push the setting and user account information to the backup server via SSH. The backup server needs to have SSH server running and allows the system we want to back up the configuration files to use its key to push the setting. The SSH server can be turned on via system storage SSH and RPC and generate the key from the menu system setup maintenance, remote backup, at the remote backup server and submit the key back to the system. System contact information. This page system setup system information is to allow you to enter the service contact into the system for information purpose. Profile ID is a unique identifier of the system. And that will be used in some places like push notification service for FCM, provided by Google, and APNS/PushKit, provided by Apple. System logo replacement. To replace the system logos, it can be done by the functions add system setup logo. You might download the current ones to modify. By doing that, it might be easier to modify existing ones to create new logos. For the new logos to display in your web browser, it is necessary to remove all the previous cache files and restart the web browser if you still find the old logos displayed on the web pages. System log files. To view the content of the log files, it can be done via system setup log files. The log files record major system activities and events. To protect the system, it only shows the last 1000 lines of that file. For more detailed information, you should use console instead of this web interface to check other associated log files. If you have syslogud running on the other host to aggregate the logs, you can redirect the log to that host as well by specifying IP address. Shut down the host. You can shut down the host via web interface by using System Setup Shutdown. In this screen, it requires entering the admin account, password, and verification code. Please note that, on some motherboards, the system power cannot be turned off via this web interface, it only shuts down all the system processes. In this case, you have to turn off the power manually after all the system processes go down. System Control Panel. The function at System Setup Control Panel is used to hide part of the menu items on the top and maintain the IP address list of the other servers. It does not have particular use but just a place to simplify the admin task if some of the menu items would not be touched so that we just hide them.